Hello, Doug Thompson here. Welcome to the Tanium Podcast, where we cover the latest tech solutions from Tanium, the global innovator in cybersecurity. On today's episode, we're discussing Tanium's integration with Microsoft Copilot and the ways it helps Tanium customers leverage real-time security data faster and easier than ever. We'll also get into some top customer concerns, particularly about data security and how much control users really have over this new AI tool. Joining me today is Brent Foster, a Director of Product Management here at Tanium. Brent, you oversee a number of integrations that we're building out of our collaboration with Microsoft. But I imagine these days you're fielding a lot of questions about Copilot.
Yeah, so I think where I always start this conversation out is our integration with Copilot for security. It's really just the latest in a series of capabilities as a result of that strategic partnership that we launched with Microsoft just about 2 years ago. And together, we've been focused on delivering a better together set of capabilities that ultimately empower our customers to take advantage of all of the tools within the Microsoft Security Suite. So, for us, that's going to be Defender for Endpoint, Sentinel, Entra ID, and Intune. And when we think about Copilot itself, or Copilot for Security, Copilot's the first generative AI security product. It was purpose-built to both empower the security teams and the IT operation teams to better protect their organizations. And it's not like Microsoft just took ChatGPT and just kind of trained it on security. It's been built from the ground up to do these things. And I think some of the really neat things about Copilot itself is it helps security teams move faster. And that ultimately means shorter time to detection and response and more time to focus on the high value tasks that those teams should be focusing on. So we're really excited to have it. When we think about what does Copilot itself do, and it's a really powerful tool that helps up-level resources primarily in the SOC, and it can simplify complex subjects. So anybody that's used to operating in the Microsoft Security Suite will understand technologies like KQL, which is what powers the Defender hunting experience. Same thing with Sentinel. Copilot can make those complicated queries accessible through natural language. So basically much easier for a junior analyst to figure out, how do I go find something? It can enrich data from a number of different sources. So that's going to be, again, anything in the Microsoft Security Suite, as well as data that can come in from third-party developers like Tanium. And that's going to help the analysts see, how do we, if you think about this, the sea of events and incidents that our customers are dealing with, right? How do you know what's the most important thing to work on? Copilot's helping kind of bring the most important things up to the top to have somebody actually have visibility and make sure that things aren't missed.
Yeah, that's I like the description, and I like what we're sort of where we're going with that, and I can see how Tanium, because of our real-time visibility and control, when you always use the example as you're driving an AI car. Do I want the data from a month ago, or do I want the data from as soon as I can get that when we're making those decisions?
That's right, and you're hitting on the exact challenge that we're kind of on the mission to solve for, right? And when you think about a SOC team responding to a security incident, how do they know that they've got the latest, most up-to-date information about the environment so that they can make decisions on, right? And that's where we really fit in. And so when you think about the plugin that we released, we have the ability to bring real-time visibility from every single endpoint in the environment and bring that into Copilot's LLM. And, so you think about, we can access literally any piece of information about an endpoint. And then, within the Tanium console, we can provide any type of corrective action to resolve those issues. And we'll maintain the context between the two. So one of the things that we developed was we wanted to ensure that as a user is operating in Copilot, if they need to pivot into Tanium, they can do that and maintain the context of all the same endpoints that they're working with in Copilot will pivot directly into our UI.
So what I hear you saying, I've used this before, is tell me something about this CVE or something about that, right? Getting some general background knowledge, getting
Yep.
that, and then whatever other plugins and stuff that are plugged into Copilot. So you've got a lot of different levers you can pull, get different information from, and then from the Tanium, okay, how does this impact my environment?
Yep.
And if Tanium, we have our natural language parser, but does this Copilot interface take it to another level?
I think it does. I think this is the first in a series of steps of seeing natural language coming into Tanium. Much like if I made an analogy that KQL could be complex for an operator in Defender or Sentinel. I think we've got a slightly better experience, because queries in Tanium are inherently based on natural language, but there is still a little formality of making sure you've got the and in the right place and things like that. This is definitely simplifying that overall experience, and I've found just even as I've used the technology, it's really easy to just go ask, hey, show me all the endpoints that are vulnerable to this CVE versus having to just kind of tweak the Tanium query that way. So I think this is just, the beginning of how you're going to see Tanium being able to take advantage of large language models like Copilot.
And you mentioned sort of upskilling or helping the junior or less senior analyst, less experienced analyst out how to do things. How is that how does it help them?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, I think this is probably one of my biggest takeaways after kind of working with Copilot for the last year, working with Microsoft, going through kind of the development cycles. And, the thing that I think is the most powerful is that where Copilot really shines is its ability to analyze context and provide guidance. So when you think about that junior analyst, helping them navigate through responding to an incident, Copilot can summarize a Defender incident. It can provide highlights about what it thinks is the most important in that incident. It can then you can ask Copilot, how should I go about responding to this? Like, what if you were me, what are the things that you should do? And then even more powerful than that, you can ask Copilot, hey, Copilot, I have access to Tanium. So now that you understand that, how could I use Tanium to go through and solve and respond to an incident? And I think this is where we see the most value for our customers. It's like, you don't need to be an expert in security response to effectively leverage, what is a pretty powerful and often complex tool, in Tanium. So the fact that Copilot can provide that insight and say, hey, since you have that in your environment, go look at the running processes that are on an endpoint. So like if you're tracking a CV, go, find out what endpoints are vulnerable to it, find out the running processes, look at, potential network traffic, again, all things that Tanium brings into the environment.
So what have been some of the challenges as people sort of go, because any type of new technology, there's always, it's not rough around the edges, but there's learning. Sometimes it's an organizational, cultural change that's got to take place, or a tool change, something. What's been going on?
That's right. I think that is, I think there's two edges to the sword, obviously. And when I think about the customer demand that we're having around this technology, I've never seen anything like it while I've been at Tanium. So I think the interest and the demand from our customers is absolutely there. When that excitement wears off a little bit, and you think about the customers that we focus on, primarily large enterprise, federal, public sector, not always the fastest to move, especially into new technology areas. And so what I'm seeing is most common is that, hey, we're really excited, we want to use this. And then all of a sudden reality hits in and it says, oh, you know what? We need to take this through a security review. Oh, shoot, we need to take this through a legal review. oh, we need to identify what information is getting exposed to the LLM. How's Microsoft using this data? What internal data of ours is getting exposed? And this, by the way, it gets broader than just Copilot for security. I would argue that this is a common theme across the Copilot ecosystem, because that ties into Microsoft 365 and your Office documents and all of it. So enterprises are now starting to look at, well, gosh, we don't have a good handle on our data. So then there becomes a whole new focus on, ensuring data classification and identifying, potential risk to their business by using these tools. So I think that's a whole grouping of issues. And then there's the, potentially the concern about, hey, I don't want an LLM to actually go do things and automate things in my environment. And the good news is Microsoft took a really practical approach, and they have what they refer to as their responsible AI principles. And basically, a couple things come out of it. One, it means that developers like Tanium that get published in Copilot do go through a pretty rigorous review process to ensure that our plugins are safe to use with Copilot. And then it's important to understand that Copilot is just providing guidance to the operator. It's not actually executing actions. So it's still on the user to go and initiate things. And so I think customers are very happy with that approach. And it's just what's their level of risk, to introduce these things in the environment. So that's probably, those are the most common things that I'm seeing.
It's great that this is happening, and everybody should be concerned about data getting let out. So you don't necessarily want to. You have to sort of crawl, walk, run when you're doing that, rather than hey, just let AI go run wild. That's how we get Skynet, and we want to avoid
that. So one of the things I think is really good to highlight is that Microsoft is focused. They've been very clear that customer data is private for customers. And so what that means is they're not using the Copilot LLM. They're not training it on customer data. Data that you send into Copilot isn't going to be used to impact the experience of another customer. So I think those type of data privacy controls are exactly what our customers are looking for to be able to adopt these types of technologies, within their enterprises.
So as an extension of that, would sending data out of my Tanium infrastructure, does that help? I would assume that falls under the same thing. We're not using it to train anything else.
Absolutely. That information stays that customer's information.
So we're not taking action yet. Is that something? I know when this first came about over a year ago at Converge, we had a sort of a proof of concept. Is that sort of like a phase 2 once we sort of standardize work and make this prove it stuff out? Is that sort of something that's on the horizon?
It is. This is probably one of the biggest things that's asked for, but also with some hesitation.
Yeah. I think you brought that up.
Yeah, because you think about it, it's like even you go back into the old days of just like IT operations and patch management, and there's always been a hesitation to automate certain tasks within IT or security. And this is really no different. So I think it's important to just understand Copilot's just providing guidance to an operator. It's not executing those actions. Over time, we'll get there, but Microsoft is taking kind of a very slow and methodical approach to doing it right. Because there is, anybody that's used any LLM, whether it's Copilot, whether it's ChatGPT, whether it's Gemini from Google, one of the questions we always get is like, what about hallucinations? And this is a thing that happens with AI. The LLMs are processing lots of different information, and sometimes they can, come to an odd conclusion. And, sometimes in those situations, it's best to just, start your session over and try it again. We see that like as people, when people have really, really long sessions, that those types of things can creep in. So
yeah, and you mentioned, to backtrack a little bit. I mean, information is contained in a session, is if I understanding that. So it's not really crossing. Two different sessions don't cross each other. I don't pull information from that, because the discussion I've had, if my experience with ChatGPT is the same thing, it sort of stays relevant to that.
That's right. Yeah, each session has context about it. And by the way, this is also one of the things that I've learned about Copilot, and really any LLM in general, is the more you tell it about your context, the more helpful it can be. And so we've started out prompts like, "Hey, I'm a junior analyst. I'm troubleshooting this incident for the first time. I could use a little extra help." And the AI then, in all the responses, is a little more verbose. It provides a lot more guidance, and so providing that insight is really important.
Yeah, I've actually found that it's saying, look, what information do you need? So give them context of what I'm looking for. And then again, this is ChatGPT, not necessarily Copilot, but I'm sure some of the learnings are still there. What do you need from me to provide me guidance on that?
Yes.
And it's usually pretty good about getting that.
Yeah, that's right.
So again, as you said, the prompts are everything. I think that's a whole new degree field, to anybody that's out there listening, want to know what to do in the future. Prompt engineering, because if you can do that, you can really master a lot of this AI and this LLMs.
It's completely true, and this is an area that we're focused on. We've got a couple of upcoming releases. One of the things that we're focusing on is helping customers understand how to create prompts that are really effective. It's not just asking, "Hey, go get me this arbitrary data from Tanium," which it can do and it's fine. But it's like, if you're thoughtful about providing the context of what you're doing, the outcome that you're trying to get to, the responses that you get, and the ongoing interaction is just that much more efficient.
Well, Brent, thanks for sharing a little bit of insight about that. I look forward to, I've enjoyed seeing what's come out of that, and just sort of the way the partnership overall has evolved. I spent 20 years there, and I still have some stock, so I still would like to see them succeed as we go on. But yeah, thanks again. And we'll catch up on the next episode when we've got something else coming out. So thanks.
All right. Thanks for having me. It was my pleasure.
I've been speaking with Brent Foster, a director of product management at Tanium. To learn more about the Tanium Copilot integration and the many other ways the Tanium platform can benefit your organization, please visit Tanium.com. If you enjoyed this episode, please give us a 5-star rating, and be sure to subscribe to Tanium Podcast to hear more discussion and debate from Tanium partners, customers, and team members across the globe.